Let me see. Okay. Okay, it's out. Okay, it says I'm recording. All right, everybody. I'm Jordan Scheidecker. You guys have started to pay attention to like some of the stuff that I'm doing and putting on YouTube and some of the cool people I'm talking to. I'm really fortunate and really thankful to just be surrounded by a bunch of people that are doing super cool things. Today, I'm here with Rose Hollermann, and if you don't know, she's really cool. We'll basically explain that to you in a bunch of different ways. A lot of people have love for her, and that's because she's a really cool person that has been able to, again, make a lot of cool things happen. So we're just going to talk about that today. So we'll start with like just asking Rose, like, who are you, Rose? Like, where are you from? What's your disability? Like, getting involved in wheelchair basketball. What do you want people to know about you?
So originally I'm from Elysian, Minnesota. So I'm 5 miles outside of a town of like 500 people in southern Minnesota. I was in a car accident when I was 5 years old that left me partially paralyzed from like the belly button down, basically. Uh, I got into sports when I was younger, kind of for therapeutic reasons at first. I started doing swim therapy, and then from there, I just kind of took off, and I love the sport. I've been a Paralympian since 2012 and gold medalist in 2016. I've graduated from the University of Texas at Arlington, and I'm currently living and playing abroad in Spain.
Yeah, see what I'm talking about? All those cool things that you're able to make happen. So I love to talk about like people getting introduced to the sport and like their first experiences and different things like that. So you talked about like your accident and getting involved in sports for rehabilitation, but like talk about your first experiences with basketball, like who like showed you basketball and like who you were kind of running into and making connections with right away.
So yeah, I started doing swim therapy, and my swim therapist was like, you're being very competitive with this, and just kind of could see that I needed to do sports. So she suggested I go at Courage Center, a rehabilitation center in Minnesota that also has tons of adaptive sports. She suggested I go do the swim team, and there I met someone named Ben Kenyon, who is also pretty famous in wheelchair basketball. He's played abroad. He's went to the University of Whitewater, Wisconsin, won many championships there, and he was the first person I think I met in adaptive sports, and suggested that I try basketball. And I think after that, every sport that Ben tried, I tried. So that was a hefty load of sports that I took part in.
Yeah, and Ben's pretty competitive himself too, huh?
Yeah, he is. It was definitely a good role model for me to grow up with.
For sure. And like just speaking of competitiveness, like the program in Minnesota, right? It's like really successful and they do a lot of positive things across the state. So maybe you could talk about like the basketball program success, like the Courage program success as a whole and different things like that. Like
Yeah, so Courage Center is I definitely extremely grateful that I ended up being able to be a part of the Courage Center and the adaptive program that they have there. In terms of basketball, I mean, we have a team for like we have a prep team, we have a pre-prep team for the teeny tiny boppers beforehand. We have a back in my day we used to always have a JV team, a varsity team, and a men's team. And I mean, growing up for a while, I was able to play on the prep team, won a couple of championships with them, which was super fun because it's prep is, under the age of 12. Those are some of the more meaningful championships to me just because you were so young and new to everything. And then also the junior rolling Timberwolves always, I think, is historically one of the most successful teams in the US. And the like when I first started when I was 12, I was able to join one of the teams and be part of the start of a three-peat with the junior rolling Timberwolves. And I think like the success from that really comes from fundamentals and the way that they teach and bring kids into the sports. And I don't know, it's a great program.
where do you think they were learning like how to teach wheelchair basketball? Where was your program getting that information? How are they teaching their kids? What were some of those things like, or what were some of the things that you remember being taught specifically like in the program about basketball?
Um, Honestly, I think why the program is so successful is because they really believe in leadership and passing on. So it isn't necessarily that like they created a platform where people want to learn and they want to give back. It's like I remember growing up going to leadership camps and going and watching like my older teammates go into leadership camps and become leaders and then even go off to college and come back and be coaches. That I think just kind of that like wanting to be role models for younger people, wanting to teach the people before you. As you go on, you start getting, you know, a stream of wealth of knowledge. But when you first start, you don't have that. And when you have someone older that's a leader and willing to pass it on, that's when a program starts to be successful. And I also think that comes from just really promoting the idea of community from sports. Is our team was always a family first. And I think like you care about your family a lot, so you want to teach them, and then you also you want to learn from your family. You have more of that idea of like giving and taking from each other in order to get your goal. So I think just that element was really awesome at Courage Center.
Yeah, for sure. You're talking about a lot of different important things that people need, obviously, right? And different ways of support that people you can give someone to help them be successful, right? And that had an effect on you. And so, like, I want to talk about like all of your experiences because to me they were really cool. Like, you were a year younger than me. Like, I watched you get recruited, like from an outside perspective in Whitewater, a school that wanted you to come there, and what we all thought was going to happen and what happened. Just the whole experience, right? So, just I wanted to talk to you about like you making that decision because it was a big deal and it like changed the game a little bit. So maybe talking about the process of getting recruited in high school, and what that was like starting. We'll start off with that if that works for you.
Yeah. Is it the definitely the recruiting process in high school is one of the tougher decisions I've ever had to make in my life is deciding where I wanted to go to college. I mean, Whitewater had the biggest influence in my growing up. I mean, every summer I went to Whitewater camp, there were a lot of players that I really looked up to there. And I think what it came down to was just the matter of like growth and the idea of creating something new in Arlington. That when I first went to Texas, it was their second year. I was their first female full ride scholarships student athlete that they've had. And we were kind of able to take that and create a women's program in a place that there wasn't before. But the recruiting process was, I mean, I went and saw all of the different schools, Illinois, Alabama, Texas, Whitewater, talking to the coaches all the time. I mean, the Whitewater coach at the time was Dan Price, who was the coach that got me into wheelchair basketball as well and kind of taught me everything I know, I think. Uh, and just I mean that's a hard decision. I think when you come down to it, you just kind of have a gut feeling at a certain point, and I think I definitely had that with UTA. Also, my best friend was going to UTA, and I was 18 years old, and I would follow Josie to the end of the world, even to today. So I think that might have also had a big impact on it.
Yeah, that's really cool. That's really cool. Yeah, for sure. Definitely. And you guys and like and I came up with like that question really like with that understanding of like what you're talking about, right? Just being able to like create something new and more opportunity for people to like play wheelchair basketball. And you and Josie, people like that have a big influence on like our community. So like that was a big deal and I think it was really important. So like it's cool that you're like able to talk about it with me. So I appreciate you. Yeah, kind of giving that perspective, and you did, and ultimately, right, you went down to UTA and you did your thing and you had some success. So we should talk about that. Like going down to UTA, what was that first year like?
Whew, that first year, it was definitely not all roses or flowers, roses, whatever it is. It was like it was a bit rough at times. Definitely a growing year, but also I think like in that moment of just like really struggling with basketball for the first time in my career. I mean, like we said, I came from an extremely successful juniors program, so to end up. I mean, that first year we finished last at nationals. We were the very, very bottom of it, but we really ended up learning there was a lot of new girls. We were just honestly happy to get 5 people out on the court, which was a feeling that I had never had before. But I think it motivated us and it gave us the fuel and the fire to turn around. And the next year, we actually won the national championship with the same group of girls. We just had grown so much together that it was really incredible.
And that's a big jump, right? Going from
Yeah.
well, we finishing last to finishing to get going ahead and winning the national championship. That is a huge jump, you know. And so, like, talk about some of those struggles in the first year. Like, what were some of those things you were struggling with, like, personally as a team, like, you know. And then we'll talk about kind of how you got better and you know, we'll say adjusted to some of those things and made some cool things happen, right?
So on court first, because it's I think the off the court is more important, so save that to the end. On court, what I really struggled with was being in a leadership position with a group of girls and getting my point across in a very like in the proper way. I was yelling and screaming at people for doing things that were adequate. Like they were doing a great job and I was just being irrational and overly emotional. I think like really struggled at becoming a leader. And I have so much competitive fire in me that harnessing that was something that I really, really struggled with. And it took a long time for me to get there. And I think I'm still not entirely there, but I have to also keep that fire so I can stay competitive and be in my zone. But definitely trying to be a leader and figuring out how to like motivate people and get them to come along with me instead of like thinking I have to push them.
Hey, and I don't want to make this about me, but I smile at you because I'm the same kind of way, right? And like I'm the dude that's just firing. I want to say my opinion, and I want everybody to be trying to win, and I want everybody to think wheelchair basketball is important. So, if you had any advice for someone who's just like you, like what adjustments were you making, and like how you were talking to people, and the things in different ways you were trying to motivate them.
Um, this it's a hard one. I mean, yeah, then the struggle. Like finding a way to turn that into a positive in whatever it is. Like the fire is important. Every team needs someone that is really fiery like that and just finding a way to like accommodate other people's feelings in that. And even like instead of I have to be yelling all the time, so instead of yelling negative things I got into a habit of just constantly yelling positive things. So I'm just like always yelling something, but if I'm yelling at something and it's like you're so awesome, then they're okay with it, so it works out.
For sure, for sure. You know, those little things, they sound goofy, but they really do help you, like, you know, and also like I think like a big piece for me, like in these processes too, is just trying to be vulnerable with people, right? Like letting them know, like, listen, like this is why I care about it. This is what it means to me. And like ultimately, like I know I'm getting on you and I know it sounds crazy, but I'm willing to like understand that and like have those conversations with you. And if you're willing to do that with me, then like we can be cool and we can keep working hard at what we're ultimately trying to do, which is win. So like I think some of the stuff you're saying is really, really cool. And I'm probably gonna keep saying that this whole time, but you know how it goes, you know?
I like that
Yeah,
point of like a two-way street, open, vulnerable with them. That's a good part of it as well.
yeah, for sure. And you know, like it like ultimately everyone knows that sports like you talked about earlier and it's a family, right? So like we have to have that space to be able to like be who we are and like make mistakes and like you know, like if you have that, like ultimately you have a successful program and you talk about the success in the very next year. So like talk about like what started to change and like the moments where you really said like, okay, like we have a team that's going to compete. We have a team that's going to be successful because of these things.
Mhm. I don't know if like we probably did end up having that in the first year. I think like second half of the season we played Alabama, who went on to win nationals, and like we only lost it's weird. It's one of my favorite games from college, but we lost it. But I think it is because it was that moment where we realized how successful we could be in the future. But we only lost them by 3, and it was we felt a moment of like us coming together and working together and kind of like everyone scored so much that game. And I think that feeling was really incredible. And like honestly, we went into nationals really anticipating to do well, and we wanted to be in that championship game. But actually, I ended up like being in the hospital like the morning of our semifinal, so it ended up being a little bit bad timing and rough time for us. But I think like really that first year we ended up getting there.
Cool. Yeah, for sure, for sure. Yeah. For me, like, it just takes time, right? Like, and that
Yeah.
competitiveness, sometimes that's hard, but like, like it's nice when you finally make those things happen to like look back at those little moments and say, here, like, noticing this. And like, the really good ones, people like yourself, people like, more people like yourself are just able to like pick apart those moments. So it's cool to talk about them with you. I'm just gonna take a look really quick here at my questions because I'm getting lost in good conversation here. All right, so what like I didn't really talk about like very well though was like your like experience with the national team, like right. And so you talked about like being involved in the national team so for like since like a really young age, right? And so like I feel like we should talk about that experience and like how cool that was and how special it was. And so my first question to you about that is like, how do you get connected with the national team at such a young age? Like, is there a specific person that like was throwing your name around? Is it the success of your program? Is it the moments of coaches seeing you play basketball? Like, how are you getting connected with the USA team at such a young age?
I think it started with just kind of like yeah, a bit of luck from being from Minnesota and in a good program for it. Mike Baller had a huge part, an absolute gigantic part in me being able to make a USA team when I was so young. He was my juniors coach in 2009, and he was brought on to coach like a kind of a developmental team that would go to Australia, and it was mostly all guys, but they brought me along as well. And I think that was in 2009. And a couple, like Jeff Downs was the team manager for the USA women's team at that point, and his sons were playing on that team or coaching that team. So he kind of came along and watching the games. He kind of started saying to my parents, "You really need to like she's going to be ready soon, sooner than you think." And at that point, I was only 12, 13. I was pretty young, so he started kind of prepping my parents for that. And then in 2011, Mike Baller was also given the initially given the U25 women's national team coach position. And because he was my juniors team coach, he brought me to the tryout camp, and I ended up making that team. And then everyone that made that team was asked to go to national team tryouts.
That's really cool. And so, like, talk about that, like, first tryout then, like, those experiences, like, showing up to the training center and, like, meeting people that, like, obviously are a few years older than you and, like, hanging out with them, socializing, those experiences.
Um, Everyone was always so I never felt out of place. I never really felt like I was anywhere I didn't belong. And think maybe I did have those moments, but definitely had a great group of girls around me that always made sure to steer my mindset away from that. So I'm I don't know. I think I was so young that none of it really fazed me. Like even the going to my first Paralympics, people always ask me like, "You were only 16, what did you think of it?" But everything was just like pretty and shiny and lots of fun. And I really love basketball. That's something that for me, I just love basketball. The rest of it is just a part of what playing gives you. And I think I really didn't notice. It's weird, but
Yeah. No, it's good to hear, like, your perspective of, like, those experiences, right? Because, like, ultimately you are a kid who's just playing basketball. But, like, when you reflect on it, though, like, thinking about it, especially for, like, just young kids that like are in your community in the Midwest that know who you are. That's a big deal. Like, hey, like she's 16, she's on the USA team, she's making things happen already that like possibly I could make happen down the future. So like, like for you, like it is cool that you can get up here and be like, like it was just something that I really got to enjoy, and that's something that should have happened. But like a lot of people think that's a big deal, and I'm glad we can talk about it for real. Like, and so did So I listened to a podcast that you did recently, and it talked about some of those first experiences and like your first competitive games, and like maybe getting put in some tough spots and having some things happen. So I don't know if maybe you want to like explain what I'm talking about or tell me if I'm way off track with what I'm trying to get at. But talk about that experience and what went on.
So London was definitely a bit of a roller coaster ride for me, I guess. But like honestly came into the tournament thinking I'm not going to play any minutes at all, especially in relevant times. So I'm just here to cheer and hand out water bottles and push hard in practice. And then kind of early on in the tournament, I had a couple of like good games back to back, was kind of like started proving myself to be someone that they would put on the court. And then semifinals come around and that was a rough one. We're playing Australia kind of down by one with, or maybe like tie game. I think tie game with like 14 seconds left, and Desi Miller fouls and gets her fifth foul. So at that point, it's the sub is me for her. Come in, the girl misses the first, makes the second. We get the ball in, and we come down and kind of last second end of shot clock, floater down the middle by me, end up missing it, and kind of that was the game. So definitely started my Paralympic career missing a game-winning shot at the Paralympics. A little rough, but I think that moment though is kind of it's why I'm here. What got me to this point is that moment. I like remember a teammate wrapping me up and telling me, you have to take this moment and you have to feel it to make yourself better so this never happens to you again. This is like an important moment in your career and in your life. You can take it and you can feel it. And I tried to do just that. I remember like getting off the plane from London and immediately shooting like 5,000 middle shots.
The same shot, right? And that's what ballers do, right? They go back and they work on that same shot. And the reason,
Yeah.
you know, Rose, I'm asking you that question is because you've had a lot of those experiences, right? From like originally telling me like your experience and like your disability and like and getting involved in basketball, right? You had these moments where you saw success and you were really close and like you're in these environments where like ultimately you're getting challenged, right? And you failed, but like again, you told us that you came back and found success, right? And so like we can talk about those moments as well. Like I want to talk about like how you use those moments and like to develop into who you are. Sorry for stuttering a little bit.
uh It's kind of human nature. Like when you fall down, you get back up. We hear that a million times, and I I think it's human nature. We all get the like, oh, you're so inspirational because you're disabled and you're out and about and blah blah blah. But it's just human nature, and I think especially as an athlete, those moments are important for you. It's also like at a certain point, like you learn that like losing sucks more than winning is great, and so like in a way you end up striving for the steering away from the losing because it sucks so much. It's a weird concept, but I almost think that like you get a point. I had a point where it was almost like I was training to make sure that my teammates didn't have to feel that, and that was something that really drove me at UTA, was like that they didn't have to feel that feeling of like missing a game winning shot when theoretically it probably shouldn't have came down to that.
For sure. And like you know, like what you're talking about is like just sorry for me. I'm just listening to you and getting caught up in what you're saying. But ultimately, right, if you found your desire, you found your why, right, and then you're talking about like being honest with yourself enough to say, yeah, that did suck, and this is what my role was in that experience, right? And these are the things that I can do better. And that's what I kind of seen like you talk about, like just from an outside perspective, you know what I'm saying? So like watching you do those things better, watching you ultimately just be a good person and like enjoy these experiences and not really like use it to like be a butthead, like we noticed some people can do, you know, like so like those are the cool things that people are talking about when they just get up on screen and tell you that they love you. You know what I mean? So like when we talk about you being cool, we're being real specific to all the things that you're doing, and I think it's really cool. So all of that stuff is really cool, dude. I'm telling you, I'm an emotional dude, but like I mean what I'm saying, and like a lot of like what you have going on is really cool, and I think it's important for people to hear like how like actually like you're just a regular dude too, like and you know, and that's gonna do a lot for people. So I just have like a couple like random goofy questions we can talk about, and it can go from wherever from there. But just talk about like your favorite teammates. You know what I mean? Like you know, favorite people that you've ran into like from college to Team USA, and like just little moments that you've had. You've gotten to travel around the country as well, or around the country, around the world. Talk about some of those moments and different things with that.
Favorite teammates. So one of like Ben Kenyon, big brother, but also Chuck Aoki, who now is a quad rugby player, is probably one of my like most influential two people I've played with. They really like steered me into a good place. Elena Nichols is incredibly famous as well in adaptive sports, but man, is she such a goofball. And at my first like USA team, being on teams with her and experiencing how goofy she was, and then like walking into the Paralympic like clothing stores, and there's just a big huge like poster of her with Visa, and just like that experience was really fun for me, and she is very very goofy. uh Obviously, I mentioned Josie already. Like she's one of my best friends in the entire world, and we were always like teammates on and off. I don't think we actually met like non-basketball related during rehab, and then we're pen pals for like 5 years of our lives. But like, love her. And then Morgan Wood is also a highlight of mine for teammates. She's just like she's the girl that like started UTA and has this really big southern personality, like kind of cocky, lots of swag to her. Like she's gonna, she's gonna be the one that's shit talking to the other team. That is like even during practices, sometimes you would just be like, "Hey man, like leave me alone."
Yeah, for sure, for sure.
Which is so fun. Like players like that are definitely it's fun to be a part of that. uh Man, I have so many teammates that I like so much that like here now I like all of my teammates right now are really awesome. Like Jorge Sanchez is a really big like role model to me, and someone I really look up to, and is like also very very goofy, but like the whole all of my teammates here right now are extremely great, and I love them to pieces. So that's a tough one.
Yeah, that's a good reminder for me to talk about what you are doing right now, because I think that is really cool to share with people too. Like you said, you're this small town kid, and now all of a sudden, where are you living?
I live in Las Palmas in Gran Canaria. So I live like I play in the Spanish league, and the set of islands I'm on are Spanish, but I live off the coast of Morocco, which is cool.
Yeah, that is a really cool experience. How do you find out about something like that? Like, how do you get involved?
Um, like it just kind of happened. The same like our my club team coach, he went to Worlds in Hamburg. Hamburg? Yeah, Hamburg. And he like watched some of our games. He watched me play against Spain, and he kind of liked me. And then Jorge Sanchez, who's American, he's a UTA alum also. He kind of suggested like me for the team. And then just kind of like from there we started talking to them, and like the offer they gave me to come over here, and it just kind of happened.
That's really awesome. And like, what were those first like conversations like? Like, what was it like making those connections? Because obviously, like, they're from across the world. So like, was it like weird to have someone like from so far away reaching out? Like, did you know who they were? Like
Um,
those kind of things.
like really Jorge did most of the conversations and kind of the mediator for everything. And then after that, like, yeah, it was weird. Like the first, like wheelchair basketball, playing professional wheelchair basketball, something that I didn't really expect. I thought they were gonna be like, give me your email, let's talk over email, or give me this. But it's Facebook Messenger. That's how you get a contract in Spain or professionally. Is you go on your Facebook Messenger. Make sure that you're always checking your requests if you're wanting to go, because that's what happened to me. They like messaged me, and a couple days later, Jorge was like, "Hey, why haven't you replied to them?" It's like, oh, I have to go into my requests to see that like some random person I don't know is messaging me. But definitely weird. And, there's a language barrier. It's like slowly but surely, I'm getting better at Spanish. But at that time, I didn't speak any Spanish at all. So I, it was definitely a struggle.
For sure, for sure. Thank you for sharing that. So, what's the day-to-day experience like now? Like, what's practice look like? How are you guys traveling? Like, I know it looks different with fans and different things because of COVID, but like, ultimately, what are the cool things about being a professional wheelchair basketball player in Spain right now?
Um, Last season I would have said that the fans are really fun. Like you have proper people that are like wheelchair basketball fans and fans of your club. Um, Probably like this is your full-time job. So, and everyone around you is as committed with basketball as you are. Like in college there, I had to learn eventually that like some people are here for college for their education. Everyone should be there for their education, but the like amount of commitment that people are willing to give to basketball is different. And coming over here was like, ooh, everyone is super committed to this. This is 100% what they're here for. So like day to day, we get up, we have a shooting session in the morning, uh, lift 4 times a week, and then we have like a bit of a break, and then we have like a night session as a team. And I mean, like the also one of my favorite things about playing abroad, actually, sorry, I'm rambling, uh, is like in the Spanish league, they have to stream every game has to be streamed on YouTube. So you can watch games back to 2014. And I had no idea about this when I was living in the States. I would like watch games every once in a while, but it was kind of like challenging to find the links and I didn't really know. And now I've like figured it out and you can watch so much basketball and every game is streamed. Every status like is live. Like you can see so much. It's great for someone that just loves watching basketball for the fun of it. It's awesome.
For sure, I'm having some of those same experiences. Like, right as a kid, you can really find it, but now you like start to make those connections, and you're like, oh, okay, there's where it is. They're just like getting that link, opens up all that access. But that's really cool because that's something that we're like going to talk about, right? We're going to talk about film and we're going to test it out. Okay, luckily, like I'm recording this, so like I can like edit it too. So like if we like have to sit here and like figure out like okay, it's working now, like I can just chop it out and then it won't even be in there. So this part
Oh,
probably won't be.
perfect.
Yeah, this part probably won't be in there. But like that was really good. Like you know what I mean? Like, dude, that was really good. I feel like we talked about a lot of different things and like a lot of information that people are gonna be like, like holy shit. Like these guys like just opened up like a light or like turned on a light in my head. Like you know what I mean? Like even just like the last part you were talking about, like here, like oh, like here's how you find like the games and like the links and different things and like we can talk about like making sure people can click on links when we post this video and stuff too. So it's all gonna be really good. You know what I mean?
That'd be cool. I like that you brought up like Junior's career so much because that's something that like it's terrible, but I forget to like touch about it. I mean, it was like 7 years ago, but
Yeah.
so sometimes I forget, but that was a good question.
Yeah, you had a lot going on too, like a lot of different experiences, and it's okay to be honest about that too. You know what I mean? Like, like there's a lot to like sit there and reflect on if you really think about it. We could be here like all year. Uh, so I might not be able to see like the main screen or whatever, and I don't know what you'll see, but we'll figure it out. All right, so I'm sharing my screen now.
Uh,
Do you
oh,
see my screen?
nice.
Okay,
Yeah.
so you do see it, and then I have So you still see it,
Yeah.
and it looks
Nice. Did
decent.
you clip anything?
Nope. I just took the ones. I took the ones that you gave me, and we're just gonna look at it. So I think what I can do if I'm here is I can like uh I thought I could pause it. No, now you're gonna get into my classwork. Okay, yeah. So we can just watch it like this if that's cool with you, and we'll talk about it. And I can pause it. This is the defensive one, right? In your rotations.
Yeah, just like I kind of picked this one because I think like I could have picked a perfect defense, like something that it looks, it's a clean line. It's, you know, like to the start of this play, you see I'm coming from out. I'm kind of like getting manned out for a second and have to recover back in, talk to my teammates, make sure they put me in a good place. And
I love
like
it.
yeah, like we almost two of us are out and we end up recovering back in. Like a pick ends up happening and he rotates over. Like someone gets left 2-on-1. It's Matt Scott. I have to go way out there. Like falls over, get back in. Like just kind of like watching us like bend and recover with each other. I think like defense in wheelchair basketball isn't gonna look perfect. And like this play really felt like we talked to each other, we communicated with each other when like things didn't go perfect. We ended up recovering, filling into our spots, and just like I think that's what good team defense looks like. We ended up forcing a shot that I don't think is ideal. It like posting up like way outside of the key,
Yeah.
shooting over someone. So I just like recover here, help comes over, he recovers to the 2-person baseline cut, but they end up getting in, jump over a 2-man. Like Jorge recovers well up top, pick happens, they come off of it and box out well, shot goes up, miss. I think that's
Yeah.
good defense.
Yeah. Making good recovery decisions is a good point to make.
I
So
don't
yeah,
know, what do you see?
I would disagree with you on kind of what I see, and like like we're seeing good D, we're seeing good D. I don't know the threats of like like your defensive game plan, but ultimately like when you see this guy jump, right, what's he do? He gets contact on this guy's chair with the ball, right? So gets this contact, stops the ball, makes him get rid of it. Good, right? Everybody knows their responsibility, sticks with their man. Perfect on that. You get back under. Jorge's going to his man, gets contact right away. And like in the video, right, in this defense, what are you guys doing? Every time a pick goes to get set, someone's going with them, right? You guys are rubbing that pick, making it difficult to make happen. So I agree with you. That's some pretty good stuff to be able to make happen. But you got, like you said, you're professionals that are working on this every day, right?
Yeah, that's good. Like the rubbing picks, like adjusting off. The only like real critique is at some point like someone slices through a baseline, and isn't that the number one rule of defense? Don't get beat baseline.
Yeah. So yeah, so like let's take a look at it.
I think like it's like
Yeah, so here, right, which way is his chair? His foot plate could be readjusted and maybe be facing baseline, just so that way he's ready to make big wheel contact to someone's foot plate, right? Because it was kind of
yeah.
if I'm sitting here being if I'm critiquing super hard, right, and I'm looking, I'll pause it where I'm talking about. We're here, right? If we're looking at this moment right here, right? On the lowest defender baseline. Do you see how his chair
Mhm.
setup is not necessarily where his foot plate is in the direction facing baseline? If he readjusts and puts his big wheel rubber on some kind of his chair, like the guy he's defending, and then is ultimately ready to stop that baseline, I think he'll do a better job, right, of not allowing that offensive player to go to the other side. And then luckily, like we're talking about, you guys are professionals and able to communicate through some of that stuff. But like in the juniors game or sometimes in the college game, like that's when it gets really tough to like know your responsibilities, right?
Mhm. And
So
also
like we
like
can,
I think he might be doing it too because he thinks he has to play two for a second, which like a lot of like problems in defense can be solved with communicating. So if Jorge right here like knows that they're jumping and turns his chair and lets Mendel know that he's gonna come there, then like maybe he'll commit to baseline a little bit more because it looks like he's pulling back and trying to play two a little bit.
Perfect. Yeah, I definitely agree with you. Yep. Trying to play two, but ultimately, right, communicating and being ready for that next job is a lot of what we're talking about. And you guys do a good job of that, right? Even in like the little detailed critiques of like chair position, like recovery and working together as a team is really strong, like you said.
Yeah.
All right,
And then
so
the
now,
offense.
yeah, everybody
I'm a
knows
bit
it's
more
my favorite
offensive
stuff.
than
Yeah.
defensive.
So, got to jump Rose. That's what's got to happen, right? Everybody guard Rose. We'll leave him open. There we go.
I like this play on offense because like not that it's a secret, but like we have our 2-4-5s on the left side. So we run a power. We try to get the defense to shift over and to leave like our two like shooters. We kind of run a triangle, but
Yep.
our power side never really gets set up. So it's just the three of us playing without the power. Which the fact that we generated a layup off of it is something that I really like.
Yeah. That's called being a threat right there, right? You make a couple buckets and people start guarding you with a couple more people. And so that's kind of what I see right here, just one good ball movement and just making sure we take care of the ball, like around the horn, right? Even here, just not making a bad pass there. Here, making sure we get it. Yep.
It like also the like our middle guy right there, Ari. He's really good at moving the ball in order to shift the defense instead of holding the ball to get his own assist. So like
Yep.
right there was a moment where James had the pick and he could have like held the ball for a second and looked for the pass himself. Like right here, James has the pick and we're gonna roll off. But Ari knows if he doesn't pass the ball to me first, that the defense isn't gonna adjust to us and James's layup might not be open then. So like
Yeah.
he does something really smart and really unselfish and he kicks me the ball and then I end up being able to kick him because the big guy has to commit to me then, and then I can
Yep.
pass it down.
Yep. Perfect. Yeah, that is a really nice ball movement offensive play right there. Super sweet. We'll watch it one more time. It's just awesome to see people commit to you. And then if you guys are wondering, like, why is everybody freaking out that Rose has the ball when she's not even facing the basket? Like, if you go watch some of Rose's highlights, she's over here posting up 40-foot tall dudes. She can do it all. So that's why they're guarding her like that.
Thanks,
All right.
man.
And, yeah, no problem, Rose. You know I got you back. I'll hype you up any day, dog. And then
Hype
this is
Nation.
Terry Bywater, right? Is this Terry Bywater?
Yeah. Okay, I actually like watched this looking for a really good offensive play by us, and then I was just like, man, it's so cool. It should just like I love watching basketball to just like find highlights of other players and be like, look at how cool this guy is. And I just like saw this and was like, look at how cool this guy is. And this is a move that like Dylan Fishbach did a lot growing up, and I saw
Yeah.
so much. I used to always think like if Dylan can do it, no one else probably can either, so it's fine. But like starting to see this guy like curl into space and find like those pockets in the same way that like Dylan did always growing up is really fun for me to see in a different way. But to know that I guess if Dylan can do it, maybe Terry can too.
For sure. Seeing more of those people. Dylan is a heck of a shooter, and like when I first saw
Yeah.
that play, that's kind of like the first thing I like thought of is like Dylan, like and how he kind of like turns into a shot, and like it's not just us. It's not just like us saying that. That's kind of what everybody knows about Dylan. Like
Yeah,
that little
he's
curl in shot, like barely a 3-pointer, but he knows the space on the floor and he's gonna shoot it. And he
he
extended
puts
that
his
range
foot
in
on the
college,
ground,
but
Jordan. That's why he can do that. He puts
yeah,
his
yeah,
foot on the
yeah.
ground.
I'll let you guys talk about that. You know what I'm saying? I can let you guys
But
talk
this guy
about
doesn't put his foot on the ground. See, that was
that.
like in college. I had this like phase where like Jay was like, "Come on, Dylan can make a shot like that. Why can't you?" And I would try really hard at it, like finding like the right moment to get let off that three. And then I was watching a game and I was like, He puts his foot on the ground. Of course he can stop his chair and have like control.
Hey, that's a debate. That's a debate, I guess. We'll have to have you both on here. We can talk about those different things.
We can. Would he tell me? I mean, he never gets called for it. Like you have it, you should use it. It doesn't like take any thing away from that shot. Because man, can that kid shoot the basketball?
Yeah. And it's crazy too to think about. People don't understand, but that 4-5 ability to like even just push with your feet a little bit to like generate momentum into your body, into your shot, like it's such a big deal. So like, that is a big point to bring up.
Yeah.
But
Or like the ab function to not like to like because this guy like in that shot like he just kind of waits for like the perfect moment where he's squared up and can release the ball there. And like actually he hit that same exact shot against us to put them up by 3 and have us end up losing to them a couple weeks ago. So like just kind of a weird foundation shot from someone, but like just like turning your chair and finding that perfect moment to release the ball, you have to have a lot of core to like keep tight.
for sure, for sure, some of us are a little more blessed. But that's cool though. It's all good that you bring all this stuff up, and like ultimately, Rose, I feel like we had like a really good conversation and talked about like a lot of like really important things. I guess like the last thing I kind of like would ask you is if like there's any like advice that you have for people, I guess, or like anything that you just want people to know about you, wheelchair basketball, or just any of your experiences. So like, and that's kind of how we'll wrap our conversation up.
Wrap it up. I guess something for girls that play in junior leagues with guys that end up playing on men's division with guys that like one, it's awesome. I think all of us are badasses for doing it. I think like the men in wheelchair basketball also are absolutely fantastic to be as inclusive and as competitive with us as they are. But just I think like myself playing over abroad, I realized like when I was in juniors and maybe had these moments of like being like, why aren't there any girls around me? And just taking that and realizing that it's that I'm being a badass and I need to like be confident in myself and I need to not look down on myself just because I'm the only girl in the bunch. And I think if I would have realized that when I was younger in juniors, I probably would have had more confidence. I don't know if I needed that, but like it would have been happier and healthier and mentally I would have like taken care of myself a little bit more. So just letting girls know in wheelchair basketball that playing with all the boys, it's fine if you're the only girl. That's awesome. I love it. Keep it up. If there's other girls, love each other, support each other, and always build each other up. Kind of the name of the game for everyone, but more so with girls. Sorry.
You were talking. Go ahead. You got it.
And I always like to say this is to make sure that even now as a professional athlete, this is my full-time job. This is what I get paid for. I love the game first and last. This is my passion. This is what I love to do. And it is a game. It's put the round thing in the brown thing and or the brown thing in the round thing. Either way it works. But it's a game. The 7-year-old me is playing. I'm playing it for the same exact reasons that I was playing it when I was 7 years old and just got started. And that's something that I think athletes never need to lose or forget.
I think that's all good advice. And just to kind of go off of something I kind of tell people, and especially coaching kids and having success doing that, is a little one-liner I got for you. Life is 75% confidence, right? And 25% knowing what you're doing. So if you have the confidence to just keep going back and trying again and just being like, hey, I might have looked like a goober right there, you can ultimately figure it out, right? And so it's clear you kind of agree with some of those same kind of things, but probably say it a little less goofy than I do. So thank you for reassuring some of my goofiness, I guess.
I like that. That's a good phrase. It's true. It like even if you look like a goofball, as long as you act like you're meant to be there, maybe other people will start believing it, man.
Hey, just keep coming back eventually, right? You're gonna have to stay there. Like you'll be the one. You'll know what's going on. But yeah. That's my little advice for the day. But I really appreciate like being able to have these conversations with you, Rose, and like like this like thing wasn't just us getting on the video and talking and just being like whatever. Like we put some work into it. Like we went back and forth and had some good conversations. So all of that effort and time put in, I appreciate as well. And hopefully we can do more cool stuff like this because like you got a lot of good information and a really good personality and I think people will hear you out and what you have to say. So appreciate you again.
Thanks, man. I love what you're doing. It's great to see kind of like platforms like this develop for like wheelchair basketball in general, but more specifically kind of going to the group of kids and juniors and helping that out. I think that's
Yeah,
awesome.
for sure. That's the goal, right? Like I kind of when I do talk to people about like why, right? Why am I doing this? What's the purpose? Like it's that idea that we talked about, right? Like you find out about wheelchair basketball and the first thing you want to do is YouTube. Well, our generation, like YouTube, what's wheelchair basketball? What are they doing? What kind of drills, different things like that. And you don't find anything. You don't find anything about who's the professionals, who's on the Paralympic team and stuff like that. So like getting more access to the kids that may not be able to afford to just get out there and chuck it in the juniors division and go to all the tournaments and camps and doing stuff like that and making sure they can see it from their home is a big deal to me. So getting help from people like you is a big deal and I can't say I appreciate it enough.
Yeah, the power of social media through the Paralympic movement is huge, and like seeing that being brought is awesome. I love it.
For sure, for sure. We'll do some big things. Okay, I appreciate you, Rose. Thanks for the good conversation.
Yeah, thanks, man.